Hey all, Michelle Raza here with the Finding Yourself Book Club, and today is Saturday, so we're going to do our Science Fiction Saturday series covering Robert Heinlein's Stranger in a Strange Land. So for this series, I think if you haven't watched the previous recordings or if you haven't read the book before, I don't think it really makes much sense. It's kind of hard to jump in the middle of it. But just like always, I do recommend that you pick up your own copy. It's a lot of fun. If you know this work and you love this work, then it's kind of nice to listen to it. You can also just listen along. I mean, if I'm helping you go to sleep, just have a nice soothing voice in your ears, you sleep. That's perfectly fine with me too. We do have a couple more serious playlists. We have one on coping with emotionally immature parents. We have another one on romantic relationships. Those are me on camera recording. And then we have a few more. One about domestic violence covering the Duluth Power and Control Wheel. And then one with the Gottmans where they actually talk about their own works. There's like 50 videos in that one. And then this playlist, which is just a little bit of fun for the weekend. I love you guys. I love to spend time with you guys. So I can't leave you alone even on the weekends. Please do like and subscribe. It really does help us little YouTubers. And if you're inclined for the more serious stuff, go ahead and check out our website. We're at www.findingyourselfsatx.com. Okay, so we are on chapter 7. Despite a late evening, Jill was ready to relieve the night floor nurse 10 minutes early the next morning. She intended to obey Ben's order to stay out of his proposed attempt to see the man from Mars, but she was determined to be close by when it happened, just in case. Ben might need reinforcements. There were no longer Marine guards in the corridor. Trays, medication, and 2 patients to be prepared for surgery kept her busy the first 2 hours. She had only time to check the knob of the door to Suite K-12. It was locked, as was the door to the adjoining sitting room. The door to the watchroom on its other side was closed. She considered sneaking in again to see Smith through the connecting sitting room, now that the guards were gone, but decided to postpone it. She was too busy. Nevertheless, she managed to keep a close check on everyone who came onto her floor. Ben did not show up, and discreet questions asked of her assistant on the switchboard reassured her that neither Ben nor anyone else had gone in to see the man from Mars, while Jill was busy elsewhere. It puzzled her. While Ben had not set a time, she had had the impression that he had intended to storm the Citadel as early in the day as possible. Presently, she felt that she just had to snoop a bit. During a lull, she knocked at the door of the suite's watchroom, then stuck her head in and pretended surprise. "Oh, good morning, Doctor. I thought Dr. Frame was in here." The physician at the watch desk was strange to Jill. He turned away from the displayed physio data, looked at her, then smiled as he looked her up and down. "I haven't seen Dr. Frame, nurse. I'm Dr. Brush. Can I help?" At the typical male reaction, Jill relaxed. "Nothing special. To tell the truth, I was curious. How is the man from Mars?" "Eh?" She smiled and winked. "It's no secret to the staff, doctor. Your patient..." She gestured at the inner door. "Huh?" He looked startled. "Did they have him in this suite? What? Isn't he here now?" "Not by 6 decimal places. Mrs. Rose Bakerson, Dr. Garner's patient. We brought her in early this morning." "Really? But what happened to the man from Mars? Where did they put him?" "I haven't the faintest. Say, did I really just miss seeing Valentine Smith?" "He was here yesterday, that's all I know." "And Dr. Frame was on his case? Some people have all the luck. Look what I'm stuck with." He switched on the peeping Tom above his desk. Jill saw framed in it, as if she were looking down, a waterbed. Floating in it was a tiny old woman. She seemed to be asleep. "What's her trouble?" Nurse, if she didn't have more money than any person ought to have, you might be tempted to call it senile dementia. As it is, she's in for a rest and a checkup." Jill made small talk for a few minutes more. then pretended to see a call light. She went back to her desk, dug out the night log. Yes, there it was. VM Smith, K-12 transfer. Below that entry was another, Rose S. Bankerson, Mrs., Red K-12. Diet kitchen instructed by Dr. Garner, no orders. Floor not responsible. Having noted the rich old gal was no responsibility of hers, Jill turned her mind back to Valentine Smith. Something about Mrs. Bakerson's case struck her as odd, but she could not put her finger on it. So she put it out of her mind and thought about the matter that did interest her. Why had they moved Smith in the middle of the night? To avoid any possible contact with outsiders, probably. But where had they taken him? Ordinarily, she would simply have called reception and asked. But Ben's opinions plus the phony broadcast of the night before had made her jumpy about showing curiosity. She decided to wait until lunch and see what she could pick up on the gossip grapevine. But first, Jill went to the floor's public booth and called Ben. His office informed her that Mr. Caxton had just left town, to be gone a few days. She was startled, almost speechless by this, then pulled herself together and left word for Ben to call her. Then she called his home. He was not there. She recorded the same message. Ben Caxton had wasted no time in preparing his attempt to force his way into the presence of Valentine Michael Smith. He was lucky in being able to retain James Oliver Cavendish as his fair witness. While any fair witness would do, the prestige of Cavendish was such that a lawyer was hardly necessary. The old gentleman had testified many times before the High Court of the Federation, and it was said that the wills locked up in his head represented not billions, but trillions. Cavendish had received his training in total recall from the great Dr. Samuel Renshaw himself, and his professional hypnotic instruction had been undergone as a fellow of the Rhine Foundation. His fee for a day or fraction thereof was more than Ben made in a week, but Ben expected to charge it off to the Post Syndicate. In any case, the best was none too good for this job. Caxton picked up the junior Frisbee of Biddle, Frisbee, Biddle and Reed, as that law firm represented the Post Syndicate. Then the two younger men called for witness Cavendish. The long, spare form of Mr. Cavendish, wrapped chin to ankle in the white cloth of his profession, reminded Ben of the Statue of Liberty, and was almost as conspicuous. Ben had already explained to Mark Frisbee what he intended to try, and Frisbee had already pointed out to him that he had no status and no rights, before they called for Cavendish. Once in the fair witness's presence, they conformed to protocol and did not discuss what he might be expected to see and hear. The cab dropped them on top of Bethesda Center. They went down to the director's office. Ben handed in his card and said that he wanted to see the director. An imperious female with a richly cultivated accent asked if he had an appointment. Ben admitted that he had none. Then I am afraid that your chance of seeing Dr. Bromer is very slight. Will you state your business? Just tell him, Caxton said loudly so that others waiting would hear, that Caxton of the Crow's Nest is here with a lawyer and a fair witness to interview Valentine Michael Smith, the man from Mars. She was startled almost out of her professional hauteur, but she recovered and said frostily, I shall inform him. Will you be seated, please? Thanks, I'll wait right here. They waited. Frisbee broke out a cigar. Cavendish waited with the calm patience of one who has seen all manner of good and evil, and now counts them both the same. Caxton jittered and tried to keep from biting his nails. At last the Snow Queen behind the desk announced, Mr. Berquist will see you now. Berquist? Gil Berquist? I believe his name is Mr. Gilbert Berquist. Caxton thought about it. Gil Berquist was one of Secretary Douglas's large squad of stooges, or executive assistants. He specialized in chaperoning official visitors. I don't want to see Berquist. I want the director. But Berquist was already coming out, hands shoved out before him, greeter's grin plastered on his face. Benny Caxton, how are you, chum? Long time and so forth. Still peddling the same old line of hoke? He glanced at the fair witness, but his expression admitted nothing. Ben shook hands briefly. Same old hoke, sure. What are you doing here, Gil? If I ever manage to get out of public service, I'm going to get me a column too. Nothing to do but phone in 1,000 words of rumors each day and spend the rest of the day in debauchery. I envy you, Ben. I said, what are you doing here, Gil? I want to see the director, then get 5 minutes with the man from Mars. I didn't come here for your high-level brush-off. Now, Ben, don't take that attitude. I'm here because Dr. Bromer has been driven almost crazy by the press. So the Secretary General sent me over to take some of the load off his shoulders. Okay, I want to see Smith. Ben, old boy, don't you realize that every reporter, special correspondent, feature writer, commentator, freelance, and sob sister wants the same thing? You Winchells are just one squad in an army. If we let you all have your way, we would kill off the poor jerk in 24 hours. Polly Peepers was here not 20 minutes ago. She wanted to interview him on love life among the Martians. Bergquist threw up both hands, and looked helpless. I want to see Smith. Do I see him, or don't I? Ben, let's find a quiet place where we can talk over a long, tall glass. You can ask me anything you want to. I don't want to ask you for anything. I want to see Smith. By the way, this is my attorney, Mark Frisbee, Biddle and Frisbee. As was customary, Ben did not introduce the fair witness. They all pretended that he was not present. I've met Frisbee, Bergquist acknowledged. How's your father, Mark? Sinuses still giving him fits? About the same. This foul Washington climate. Well, come on, Ben. You too, Mark. Hold it, said Caxton. I don't want to interview you, Gil. I want to see Valentine Michael Smith. I'm here as a member of the press, directly representing the Post Syndicate, and indirectly representing over 200 million readers. Do I see him? If I don't, say so out loud, and state your legal authority for refusing me. Bergquist sighed. Mark, will you tell this keyhole historian that he can't go busting into a sick man's bedroom just because he has a syndicated column? Valentine Smith made one public appearance just last night, against his physician's advice, I may add. The man is entitled to peace and quiet and a chance to build up his strength and get oriented. That appearance last night was more than enough. There are rumors, Caxton said carefully, that the appearance last night was a fake. Bergquist stopped smiling. Frisbee, he said coldly, do you want to advise your client on the law concerning slander? Take it easy, Ben. I know the law on slander, Gil. In my business, I have to. But whom am I slandering? The man from Mars or somebody else? Name a name, I repeat. He went on, raising his voice. That I have heard that the man interviewed on TV last night was not the man from Mars. I want to see him myself and ask him. The crowded reception hall was very quiet as everyone present bent an ear to the argument. Bergquist glanced quickly at the fair witness, then got his expression under control and said smilingly to Caxton, Ben, it's just possible that you talked yourself into the interview you wanted, as well as a lawsuit. Wait a moment. He disappeared into the inner office, came back fairly soon. I arranged it, he said wearily, though God knows why. You don't deserve it, Ben. Come along, just you. Mark, I'm sorry, but we can't have a crowd of people after all. Smith is a sick man. No, said Caxton. Huh? All three of us, or none of us? Take your choice. Ben, don't be silly. You're receiving a very special privilege. Tell you what, Mark can come along and wait outside the door, but you certainly don't need him. Bergquist glanced toward Cavendish. The witness seemed not to hear. Maybe not, but I've paid his fee to have him along. My column will state tonight that the administration refused to permit a fair witness to see the man from Mars. Berquist shrugged. Come along then, Ben. I hope that slander suit really clobbers you. They took the patient's elevator rather than the bounce tube out of deference to Cavendish's age, then rode a slide away for a long distance past laboratories, therapy rooms, solaria, and ward after ward. They were stopped once by a guard who phoned ahead, then let them through. They were at last ushered into a physio-data display room used for watching critically ill patients. This is Dr. Tanner, Berquist announced. Doctor, this is Mr. Caxton and Mr. Frisbee. He did not, of course, introduce Cavendish. Tanner looked worried. Gentlemen, I am doing this against my better judgment because the director insists. I must warn you of one thing. Don't do or say anything that might excite my patient. He is in an extremely neurotic condition and falls very easily into a state of pathological withdrawal, a trance, if you may choose to call it that. Epilepsy? Asked Ben. A layman might easily mistake it for that. It's more like catalepsy, but don't quote me. There is no clinical precedent for this case. Are you a specialist, doctor? Psychiatry, maybe? Tanner glanced at Berquist. Yes, he admitted. Where did you do your advanced work? Berquist said, Look, Ben, let's see the patient and get it over with. You can quiz Dr. Tanner afterwards. Okay. Tanner glanced over his dials and graphs, then flipped a switch and stared into a peeping Tom. He left the desk, unlocked a door, and led them into an adjoining bedroom, putting a finger to his lips as he did so. The other four followed him in. Caxton felt as if he were being taken to view the remains and suppressed a nervous need to laugh. The room was quite gloomy. Take a break, be right back. My dog was barking up a storm, so I had to go check on her. The room was quite gloomy. We keep it semi-darkened because his eyes are not accustomed to our light levels, Tanner explained in a hushed voice. He turned to a hydraulic bed, which filled the center of the room. Mike, I've brought some friends to see you. Caxton pressed closer. Floating therein, half concealed by the way his body sank into the plastic skin covering the liquid in the tank, and further concealed by a sheet up to his armpits, was a young man. He looked back at them, but said nothing. His smooth, round face was expressionless. So far as Ben could tell, this was the man who had been on stereo the night before. He had a sudden sick feeling that little Jill, with the best of intentions, had tossed him a live grenade, a slander suit that might very well bankrupt him. You are Valentine Michael Smith? Yes. The man from Mars? Yes. You were on stereo last night? The man in the tank bed did not answer. Tanner said, I don't think he knows the word. Let me try. Mike, you remember what you did with Mr. Douglas last night? The face looked petulant. Bright lights hurt. Yes, the lights hurt your eyes. Mr. Douglas had you say hello to people. The patient smiled slightly. Long ride in chair. Okay, agreed Caxton. I catch on. Mike, are they treating you all right here? Yes. You don't have to stay here, you know. Can you walk? Tanner said hastily, Now, see here, Mr. Caxton. Berquist put a hand on his arm and he shut up. I can walk a little tired. I'll see that you have a wheelchair. Mike, if you don't want to stay here, I'll help you get out of bed and take you anywhere you want to go. Tanner shook off Berquist's hand and said, I can't have you interfering with my patient. He's a free man, isn't he? Caxton persisted. Or is he a prisoner here? Berquist answered, Of course he's a free man. Keep quiet, Doctor. Let the fool dig his own grave. Thanks, Gil. Thanks all to pieces. So he is free to leave if he wants to. You heard what he said, Mike. You don't have to stay here. You can go anywhere you like. I'll help you. The patient glanced fearfully at Tanner. No. Okay. Tanner snapped. Mr. Berquist, this has gone quite far enough. My patient will be upset the rest of the day. All right, Doctor. Ben, let's get the show on the road. You've had enough, surely. Just one more question. Caxton thought hard, trying to think what he could squeeze out of it. Apparently Jill had been wrong, yet she had not been wrong, or so it seemed last night. But something did not quite fit, although he could not tell what it was. One more question, Berquist begrudged. Thanks. Mike, last night Mr. Douglas asked you some questions. The patient watched him but made no comment. Let's see, he asked you what you thought of the girls here on Earth, didn't he? The patient's face broke into a big smile. Gee! Yes, Mike. When and where did you see these girls? The smile vanished. The patient glanced at Tanner. Then he stiffened. His eyes rolled up, and he drew himself into the fetal position, knees drawn up, head bent, and arms folded across his chest. Tanner snapped, Get them out of here! He moved quickly to the tank bed and felt the patient's wrist. Berquist said savagely, That tears it. Caxton, will you get out, or shall I call the guards and have you thrown out? Oh, we're getting out all right, Caxton agreed. All but Tanner left the room, and Berquist closed the door. Just one point, Gil, Caxton insisted. You've got him boxed up in there, so just where did he see those girls? Eh? Don't be silly. He's seen lots of girls. Nurses, laboratory technicians, you know. But I don't know. I understood he had nothing but male nurses and that female visitors had been rigidly excluded. Don't be any more preposterous than you have to be. Berquist looked annoyed, then suddenly grinned. You saw a nurse with him on stereo just last night. Oh, so I did. Caxton shut up and let himself be let out. All right. If I keep going and I hit the 30-minute mark, my camera will automatically time out on me, so I can't, even though the chapter is really good. Thanks for hanging out with me on Saturdays. Please do like and subscribe. Also, if you're watching, please take the time to comment. I love your comments. I love interacting with you guys. It is a lot of fun, and it is me that responds. And again, if you're into some more serious stuff, we have a lot of playlists that cover more heavy materials. This is just a bit of fun for the weekend. Please do check out our website if you get a chance. We're at www.findingyourselfsatx.com. Take care, y'all. Until next weekend when we continue with this awesome science fiction work. Bye-bye.